Sarah Martinez walked into the gleaming martial arts academy, with her heart pounding against her ribs. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the polished wooden floors, and the sound of her sneakers squeaking seemed to echo louder than the grunts and shouts coming from the training mats. She had saved for months to afford this place, working double shifts at the coffee shop downtown just to pay for the monthly membership. The other students moved with fluid grace, their bodies cutting through the air with precision strikes and defensive maneuvers that looked almost choreographed. Sarah watched them from the corner of her eye, feeling increasingly out of place in her borrowed workout clothes and discount store sneakers. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her ponytail for the third time in 2 minutes. When Master Chen called for partner practice, Sarah found herself paired with Derek, a stocky guy in his 20s who had been training for several years. His muscles bulged beneath his perfectly fitted GI, and he carried himself with the confidence of someone who had never doubted his physical abilities. As they faced each other on the mat, Derek's eyes quickly assessed Sarah's small frame and nervous posture. The exercise was simple in theory but challenging in execution. They were practicing wrist grabs and escapes, fundamental techniques that every martial artist needed to master. Derek reached forward and grasped Sarah's wrist with what he clearly considered appropriate force for a beginner. But when Sarah attempted to execute the escape technique they had just learned, her grip strength proved insufficient to break free from his hold. Derek's eyebrows raised in surprise, then his lips curved into a barely concealed smirk. He loosened his grip slightly, almost patronizingly, as if he were handling a child. The gesture stung more than if he had simply overpowered her completely. Around them, other pairs were successfully completing the drill, the sound of hands slapping against wrists filling the air as students broke free and reset their positions. Sarah tried again, her face flushing red as she struggled against Derek's casual grip. Her palms were sweating now, making it even harder to maintain the precise hand positioning that Master Chen had demonstrated. Other students began to notice her difficulty, their conversations quieting as they turned to watch the spectacle unfolding on her section of the mat. Master Chen approached their pair, his weathered face showing the patience of someone who had taught thousands of students over the decades. He demonstrated the technique once more, his movements slow and deliberate, emphasizing the importance of leverage over raw strength. But when Sarah attempted it again, the result was the same. Derek's grip remained unbroken, and now even Master Chen was frowning slightly, clearly puzzled by her inability to perform what should have been a basic movement. The whispers started then, floating across the dojo like autumn leaves on the wind. Some students exchanged glances and shook their heads sympathetically. Others weren't as kind, their comments cutting through the air with surgical precision. One particularly vocal student, Marcus, didn't even bother to lower his voice when he remarked that maybe Sarah should consider taking up yoga instead of martial arts. The words hit Sarah like physical blows, each comment chipping away at the confidence she had spent weeks building up before walking through those academy doors. She had imagined herself learning powerful techniques, growing stronger both physically and mentally. Instead, she found herself at the center of what felt like a public demonstration of her inadequacy. As the class continued, Sarah struggled through each drill and exercise. Her grip strength, or lack thereof, seemed to affect everything she attempted. When they practiced grabbing an opponent's GI, her fingers couldn't maintain their hold. When they worked on grip-based throws, she couldn't establish the necessary control to execute the techniques properly. Each failure added another layer to her growing embarrassment. Derek, meanwhile, seemed to be enjoying his role as the immovable object to Sarah's unstoppable force attempts. He offered what he probably thought were helpful suggestions, but his tone carried an unmistakable note of condescension. He spoke to her the way someone might address a child who was struggling with a puzzle meant for older kids. By the end of the session, Sarah's hands were sore, her ego was bruised, and her dreams of martial arts mastery felt more distant than ever. As she gathered her water bottle and towel, she could hear the other students discussing her performance in hushed tones. The word pathetic drifted to her ears, followed by laughter that felt like daggers in her chest. Walking to the changing room, Sarah caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror that lined one wall of the academy. Her hair was disheveled, her face was still flushed with embarrassment, and her eyes held a mixture of disappointment and determination that surprised her. She had expected to feel defeated, ready to quit and never return. Instead, something deeper was stirring within her, a flame that the humiliation had somehow ignited rather than extinguished. Master Chen approached her as she was leaving, his expression thoughtful. He didn't offer empty platitudes or false encouragement. Instead, he simply said that sometimes the greatest martial artists were forged in the fires of their greatest challenges. His words were cryptic, but something in his tone suggested that he saw potential in her that others had missed. As Sarah walked out into the evening air, the cool breeze felt refreshing against her heated skin. The parking lot was nearly empty now, most of the other students having left immediately after class. She sat in her car for several minutes, staring at the academy's neon sign and replaying the events of the evening in her mind. The mocking laughter still echoed in her ears, but it was beginning to transform into something else entirely, where others saw weakness. Sarah was starting to see an opportunity for growth that her classmates would never have. They had never experienced the humiliation of public failure, never felt the burning need to prove themselves against impossible odds. She started her car and drove home through the city streets, her mind already racing with plans and possibilities. The grip that had been mocked tonight would not remain weak forever. Sarah Martinez was about to embark on a journey that would transform not just her physical abilities, but her entire understanding of what it meant to overcome adversity through sheer force of will. The next morning found Sarah sitting at her kitchen table with her laptop open, surrounded by empty coffee cups and pages of hastily scribbled notes. She had spent most of the night researching grip strength training, hand conditioning techniques, and stories of athletes who had overcome physical limitations through dedicated practice. The internet had become her gateway to a world of possibilities she never knew existed. Her small apartment felt different now, charged with an energy that hadn't been there before. Every surface seemed to hold potential training equipment. The doorframe could be used for hanging exercises. The kitchen counter could support various grip holds, and even her morning coffee mug could become a tool for finger strength development. Sarah discovered that grip strength was far more complex than she had initially understood. There were different types of grips to develop: crushing grip for closing the hand around an object, pinch grip for holding things between the fingers and thumb, and support grip for hanging and carrying heavy loads. Each type required specific training methods and exercises that targeted different muscles and movement patterns. She ordered her first set of training equipment online, choosing basic tools that fit within her limited budget: grip trainers of varying resistance levels, therapy putty for finger isolation exercises, and a simple grip strengthener that she could use during her breaks at work. The estimated delivery time felt like an eternity, but Sarah used the waiting period to begin bodyweight exercises that could improve her overall hand and forearm strength. At the coffee shop where she worked, Sarah found herself studying her customers' hands with new interest. She noticed how some people gripped their coffee cups with casual strength, while others struggled with simple tasks like opening sugar packets or stirring their drinks. The observation reinforced her understanding that grip strength existed on a wide spectrum, and her position on that spectrum was simply a starting point rather than a permanent limitation. Her coworkers began to notice changes in Sarah's behavior. During slow periods, they would find her squeezing a stress ball behind the counter or doing subtle finger exercises while waiting for customers. When they asked about it, Sarah simply explained that she was working on improving her hand strength for martial arts. Most of them nodded politely, but she could see the skepticism in their eyes. The training equipment arrived on a Thursday afternoon, and Sarah felt like a child opening presents on Christmas morning. Each piece represented a step toward transformation, a tool that could help bridge the gap between her current abilities and her aspirations. She immediately began incorporating the exercises into her daily routine, starting with basic movements and gradually increasing the intensity as her hands adapted to the new demands. The first few weeks were brutal. Her hands and forearms ached constantly, and simple tasks like writing or typing became uncomfortable reminders of the training she was putting her body through. But Sarah had read enough stories of athletic transformation to understand that discomfort was temporary while improvement was permanent. She developed a training schedule that maximized her available time while minimizing the risk of overuse injuries. Morning sessions focused on lighter exercises that would activate her muscles without creating fatigue that might affect her work performance. Evening sessions were more intensive, pushing her grip strength to its current limits and then slightly beyond. Sarah also began studying the biomechanics of the techniques she had struggled with at the academy. She watched countless online tutorials, breaking down the movements frame by frame to understand exactly how grip strength contributed to successful execution. What she discovered was that many techniques relied less on raw crushing power and more on precise application of force at specific angles and timing. This revelation led her to develop supplementary training methods that went beyond simple grip strengthening. She practiced the specific hand positions required for martial arts techniques, holding training objects in the exact grip she would need during sparring or drilling. This approach helped her build not just strength but also the muscle memory and coordination necessary for effective technique application. Her research also revealed the importance of flexibility and mobility in hand and wrist function. Sarah added stretching routines to her training regimen, working to improve the range of motion in her fingers, wrists, and forearms. She learned that tight muscles could limit strength expression just as much as weak muscles could limit force production. As the weeks passed, Sarah began to notice subtle improvements in her daily life. Opening jars became easier. Carrying groceries required less effort, and even simple tasks like wringing out washcloths demonstrated increased capability. These small victories fueled her motivation and confirmed that her training approach was producing measurable results. She started documenting her progress through photographs and performance measurements, creating a visual record of her transformation that she could review during moments of doubt or frustration. The numbers told a story of steady improvement that was sometimes difficult to perceive on a day-to-day basis but became undeniable when viewed over longer time periods. Sarah's social life began to revolve around her training schedule. She declined invitations that would interfere with her exercise sessions and found herself gravitating toward friends who supported her goals rather than questioned her dedication. Some relationships faded as her priorities shifted, but new connections formed with people who shared her interest in self-improvement and physical development. The transformation wasn't just physical. Sarah noticed changes in her mental approach to challenges and setbacks. Tasks that had previously seemed insurmountable now appeared as puzzles to be solved through research, planning, and persistent effort. Her confidence grew not from external validation, but from internal proof of her ability to create positive change through focused action. 3 months after her humiliating first night at the academy, Sarah felt ready to return. Her hands had developed visible muscle definition, her grip strength had increased dramatically, and her understanding of martial arts applications had deepened through study and practice. But more importantly, her mindset had shifted from hoping she could succeed to knowing she would succeed. The decision to return to the academy required courage, but it was a different type of courage than she had needed for her first visit. This time she wasn't walking into the unknown as a complete beginner hoping for acceptance. She was returning as someone who had identified a weakness, developed a plan to address it, and executed that plan with disciplined consistency. Sarah scheduled her return for a different class time, wanting to avoid the students who had witnessed her initial struggles. This choice wasn't motivated by fear or embarrassment, but by strategic thinking. She wanted her comeback to be judged on its own merits rather than compared to past performance or influenced by pre-existing expectations. As she packed her training bag the night before her return, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. The mocking laughter that had driven her from the academy had ultimately become the catalyst for a transformation that extended far beyond simple grip strength improvement. She had discovered reserves of determination and capacity for growth that she never knew existed within herself. Sarah's return to the academy came on a rainy Tuesday evening, when fewer students typically attended class. She had deliberately chosen this timing, wanting to ease back into the environment without the pressure of a crowded dojo. The familiar sound of the heavy glass doors closing behind her sent a small shiver of anticipation through her body. But this time the nervousness was mixed with quiet confidence. Master Chen recognized her immediately despite the months that had passed. His weathered face showed a flicker of surprise, followed by something that might have been approval. He nodded respectfully as she bowed before entering the training area, a gesture that felt more natural and meaningful than it had during her first visit. The other students in the class were mostly unfamiliar faces, which suited Sarah's purposes perfectly. The warm-up exercises revealed the extent of Sarah's transformation in ways that went beyond simple grip strength. Her hands moved with greater control and precision. Her wrists showed improved flexibility, and her overall body awareness had increased dramatically. Months of focused training had created improvements that extended throughout her entire kinetic chain, from her fingertips to her core muscles. When Master Chen called for partner drills, Sarah found herself paired with a newer student named Kevin, who had been training for only a few weeks. His technique was rough around the edges, but his natural athleticism and size gave him advantages that reminded Sarah of her former training partner Derek. The comparison felt appropriate, as this pairing would provide an excellent test of her improved capabilities. The first drill involved the same wrist grab escapes that had caused Sarah so much difficulty during her initial academy experience. As Kevin wrapped his fingers around her wrist with what he clearly considered firm control, Sarah felt the familiar pressure, but experienced it completely differently than before. Her enhanced grip strength allowed her to maintain proper hand positioning even under stress, and her improved understanding of leverage mechanics gave her multiple options for escape. Sarah executed the first escape technique with smooth efficiency that surprised both her partner and herself. Her hands moved with precision and confidence, applying exactly the right amount of force at the optimal angles to break Kevin's grip without wasted motion or struggle. The success felt even more satisfying because it had been earned through months of dedicated preparation rather than natural talent or luck. Kevin's expression showed confusion and mild frustration as he tried to understand how someone of Sarah's size had so easily defeated his grip. He tightened his hold for the next repetition, using more force than was typically appropriate for drilling with a smaller partner. This escalation provided Sarah with an opportunity to demonstrate the full extent of her improvement. The second escape was even more decisive than the first. Sarah's enhanced grip strength allowed her to establish superior hand positioning before executing a technique that not only broke Kevin's hold but also placed him in a compromised position where she maintained control of his wrist. The role reversal was complete and unmistakable, transforming the drill from an exercise in basic escape to a demonstration of advanced technique application. Other students began to notice the interactions between Sarah and Kevin. The smooth efficiency of her movements and the obvious frustration of her larger partner created a dynamic that drew attention from across the training floor. Master Chen moved closer to observe their drilling, his experienced eye immediately recognizing that something unusual was occurring. As the class progressed through various partner exercises, Sarah's improved capabilities became increasingly evident. Drills that involved gripping an opponent's GI, controlling their arms, or maintaining holds during movement all showcased her transformed strength and technique. She moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had tested their abilities extensively and knew exactly what they were capable of achieving. Kevin's frustration mounted with each failed attempt to overpower or control Sarah. His technique began to deteriorate as he relied more on force and less on proper mechanics, a common mistake that Master Chen had seen countless times over the years. The harder Kevin tried to muscle through the techniques, the easier it became for Sarah to counter his efforts using precise application of her enhanced capabilities. During a break between drilling sessions, several students approached Sarah with questions about her background and training history. They had assumed she was a visiting student from another academy, or perhaps someone returning after years of absence. The revelation that she was actually a beginner who had trained at this same academy months earlier created a buzz of interest and speculation. Master Chen used this opportunity to address the entire class about the importance of consistent training and personal development. He spoke about students who had overcome initial limitations through dedicated practice, emphasizing that martial arts success was more dependent on persistence than natural talent. His words carried extra weight because everyone had just witnessed a living example of these principles in action. The final drilling session of the evening focused on more advanced techniques that required significant grip strength and hand control. Sarah's performance during these exercises was particularly impressive because they demanded exactly the capabilities she had spent months developing. Her training had been perfectly targeted to address not just her initial weaknesses but to build strengths that exceeded the requirements for basic technique execution. As the class concluded with traditional bowing and meditation, Sarah felt a deep sense of satisfaction that went beyond simple vindication. She had proven to herself that limitations could be transformed into strengths through intelligent planning and consistent effort. The mocking laughter that had driven her from this same dojo now seemed like a distant memory from someone else's life. Kevin approached her after class with a mixture of curiosity and respect that was completely different from the condescension she had experienced during her first academy visit. He asked about her training methods and expressed genuine interest in learning from her experience. The conversation represented a complete reversal of the dynamics that had characterized her earlier interactions with stronger partners. Other students gathered around to listen as Sarah briefly described her training approach and the months of focused development that had led to her current capabilities. She was careful not to reveal too much detail, understanding that the mystery surrounding her transformation added to its impact and effectiveness. Master Chen waited until the other students had left before approaching Sarah for a private conversation. His expression showed the satisfaction of a teacher who had recognized potential that others had missed. He complimented her dedication and asked if she would be interested in participating in an upcoming demonstration for advanced students from other academies. The invitation represented validation from the highest authority in the academy, but more importantly, it indicated that her transformation had been complete and convincing. Sarah accepted the opportunity while internally marveling at how completely her circumstances had changed. The student who had fled in embarrassment had returned as someone worthy of representing the academy to visiting martial artists. As Sarah changed clothes and prepared to leave the academy, she reflected on the evening's events with deep satisfaction. Every technique had worked exactly as she had practiced it. Every moment of doubt had been replaced by confident action, and every goal she had set during her months of preparation had been achieved or exceeded. The rain had stopped by the time she reached the parking lot, and the evening air felt fresh and clean. Sarah sat in her car for a few minutes, savoring the moment and planning her next steps. The first phase of her journey was complete, but she understood that true mastery would require continued growth and new challenges that would test her abilities in different ways. Word of Sarah's remarkable transformation spread through the martial arts community faster than she had anticipated. Within days of her return to the academy, stories about the small woman who had somehow developed incredible grip strength were circulating among students, instructors, and academy visitors. The tales grew with each telling, creating a mythology around her abilities that both amused and concerned her. Master Chen's invitation to participate in the upcoming demonstration carried more significance than Sarah had initially realized. The event would feature advanced students from 5 different academies, including some of the most prestigious martial arts schools in the region. She would be representing not just her own academy, but also demonstrating techniques to an audience that included several master-level instructors with decades of experience. The preparation for this demonstration required Sarah to expand her training beyond grip strength development into areas she had not previously explored. Master Chen assigned her specific techniques to master, each one chosen to showcase different aspects of her unique capabilities. The routines were complex and demanding, requiring precise timing, perfect form, and the ability to perform under pressure. Sarah's training schedule intensified dramatically as the demonstration date approached. She spent every available moment at the academy, working with Master Chen on technique refinement and with advanced students on timing and coordination. Her improved grip strength had opened doors to techniques that were typically reserved for much more experienced martial artists, creating opportunities for rapid advancement that surprised everyone involved. The other students selected for the demonstration were all black belts with years of competitive experience. Sarah's inclusion among this elite group generated curiosity and some skepticism from martial artists at other academies. Several instructors specifically requested opportunities to observe her training sessions, wanting to understand how someone with her limited experience had earned a place in such prestigious company. These informal evaluations became testing grounds where Sarah could demonstrate her abilities to increasingly knowledgeable and demanding audiences. Each session revealed new dimensions of her improvement and confirmed that her grip strength advantages translated into genuine martial arts capability, rather than simple novelty or gimmick value. One particularly challenging evaluation came from Sensei Rodriguez, a visiting instructor from a competing academy, who specialized in grappling and submission techniques. His reputation for technical excellence and demanding standards made his opinion especially valuable within the local martial arts community. He had requested a private session with Sarah after hearing exaggerated stories about her supposed abilities. Sensei Rodriguez approached the evaluation with obvious skepticism, clearly expecting to expose weaknesses or limitations that other observers had missed. He was a compact, muscular man in his 40s, whose movements demonstrated the efficiency and precision that came from decades of high-level training. His technique was flawless, his timing was perfect, and his strength was considerable even by advanced practitioner standards. The session began with basic partner drills, similar to those Sarah had struggled with during her first academy visit. But these exercises were conducted at a much higher intensity level, with Sensei Rodriguez applying genuine resistance and using proper technique rather than the casual effort that beginning students typically encountered. This was Sarah's first opportunity to test her abilities against truly skilled opposition. Sarah's performance during these initial drills exceeded even her own expectations. Her enhanced grip strength allowed her to maintain control and execute techniques, even when facing properly applied counter-pressure from an expert practitioner. The months of specific training had prepared her not just for basic technique execution, but for the complex interactions that occurred when skilled opponents actively resisted her efforts. Sensei Rodriguez's expression shifted from skepticism to surprise as the session progressed. He began increasing the intensity of his resistance and the complexity of his attacks, trying to find the limits of Sarah's capabilities. Each escalation revealed new aspects of her preparation and confirmed that her improvement had been comprehensive rather than limited to simple strength development. The turning point came during a drill that involved escaping from various wrist and arm controls. Sensei Rodriguez applied a particularly challenging hold that combined grip strength requirements with leverage mechanics and timing demands. The technique was designed to be nearly impossible for most practitioners to escape once properly applied by someone of his skill level. Sarah's escape was not just successful, but elegantly executed. She used her enhanced grip strength to establish initial hand positioning, applied precise leverage to create the necessary angles, and timed her movement perfectly to capitalize on a brief moment of opportunity. The entire sequence demonstrated technical understanding that rivaled much more experienced practitioners. The session concluded with Sensei Rodriguez offering genuine praise for Sarah's abilities and asking detailed questions about her training methods. His validation carried significant weight within the martial arts community and effectively ended any remaining skepticism about her inclusion in the upcoming demonstration. More importantly, it confirmed that her transformation had produced genuine martial arts capability rather than simply improved performance in isolated drills. News of the successful evaluation spread quickly through the network of academies and instructors. Sarah found herself receiving invitations to visit other schools and demonstrate her techniques to different groups of students. These opportunities provided valuable experience performing under various conditions and helped her develop the confidence necessary for the upcoming formal demonstration. The demonstration itself was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon at the largest academy in the region. The venue could accommodate several hundred spectators and would include martial artists from multiple disciplines and experience levels. Sarah would be performing in front of the largest and most knowledgeable audience she had ever faced, creating pressure that was both exciting and intimidating. Master Chen scheduled additional practice sessions during the final weeks before the demonstration, focusing on performance aspects that went beyond simple technique execution. Sarah learned how to maintain composure under observation, how to demonstrate techniques clearly for educational purposes, and how to recover gracefully from any mistakes or unexpected situations that might arise. The techniques selected for her performance had been carefully chosen to highlight different aspects of her capabilities while remaining accessible to audience members with varying levels of martial arts knowledge. Each routine would tell a story of transformation and demonstrate practical applications that other students could potentially incorporate into their own training. As the demonstration date approached, Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and nervous energy that reminded her of her first night at the academy. But this nervousness was fundamentally different from the anxiety she had experienced as a struggling beginner. Now she was nervous about performing well rather than afraid of failing completely. a distinction that represented the full extent of her personal and technical transformation. The week before the demonstration, Sarah reduced her training intensity to ensure her hands and arms would be fresh and fully recovered. She had learned enough about athletic performance to understand that rest was as important as training when preparing for a major event. This period of reduced activity allowed her to mentally rehearse her routines and visualize successful performance under pressure. Sarah spent the evening before the demonstration reviewing her techniques one final time and preparing her equipment and uniform. Everything was ready for what would either validate her transformation completely or reveal limitations that had not yet been discovered. Either outcome would provide valuable information for her continued development, but she strongly preferred the validation option. The demonstration venue buzzed with anticipation as martial artists from across the region gathered for what had become one of the most talked about events in recent memory. The large training hall was packed with spectators representing every major martial arts discipline, from traditional karate and kung fu to modern mixed martial arts and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Sarah had never performed in front of such a diverse and knowledgeable audience. Among the spectators were several individuals who held special significance for Sarah's journey. Derek, her original training partner who had inadvertently sparked her transformation, sat in the third row with a group of students from her original academy. His presence added an element of personal vindication to what was already a professionally important event. Master Chen had arranged for Sarah to perform fourth in the sequence of demonstrations, a position that would allow the audience to become engaged with the event while still maintaining their attention for her routines. The first three performers were all established advanced students whose techniques would provide context for understanding just how remarkable Sarah's achievements had been. As Sarah waited backstage, she could hear the enthusiastic applause for each previous performer. The standard was clearly very high, and the audience was knowledgeable enough to appreciate subtle technical details that might be lost on casual observers. This environment would provide the most legitimate test of her abilities that she had yet encountered. When Master Chen announced her introduction, he provided brief background information that emphasized her relatively short training period and the specific challenges she had overcome. He was careful not to reveal too many details about her initial struggles, instead focusing on the dedication and intelligence she had applied to her development. The introduction created appropriate expectations without diminishing the impact of what the audience was about to witness. Sarah entered the demonstration area wearing a crisp, white guy that had been specially tailored for the event. Her movements were calm and confident as she bowed to the audience and took her position at the center of the mat. The months of preparation had taught her to channel nervous energy into focused concentration rather than allowing it to create distraction or uncertainty. Her first routine focused on basic escape techniques that demonstrated the foundation of her grip strength development. Working with a volunteer from the audience, Sarah allowed herself to be placed in various holds and controls that would typically be difficult or impossible for someone of her size to escape. The volunteer was a large, experienced practitioner who applied genuine resistance rather than cooperative compliance. The escapes were executed with smooth efficiency that drew murmurs of appreciation from the knowledgeable audience. Sarah's enhanced grip strength allowed her to establish hand positioning that more experienced martial artists recognized as crucial for advanced technique application. But more impressive than the strength was the precision and timing that demonstrated deep understanding of the underlying mechanics. The second routine involved weapon disarmament techniques that required the ability to control an attacker's weapon hand while simultaneously executing counterattacks. These demonstrations used padded training weapons to ensure safety while maintaining realistic resistance levels. Sarah's partner for this section was a black belt instructor from another academy who specialized in weapons training. The disarmament sequences showcased not just grip strength but the intelligent application of leverage, timing, and positioning that transformed raw capability into practical technique. Sarah moved with the confidence of someone who had tested these methods extensively and understood their limitations as well as their advantages. Each technique flowed naturally into defensive positions that would allow for follow-up actions in real-world situations. The audience response grew, increasingly enthusiastic as Sarah's demonstration progressed. Experienced practitioners could recognize the level of preparation and understanding required to execute such techniques under observation pressure. The combination of strength, skill, and composure was impressive even by the high standards of the assembled martial artist. The final and most challenging portion of Sarah's demonstration involved advanced grappling techniques against two opponents simultaneously. This scenario required split-second decision-making, superior positioning, and the ability to control multiple attackers using grip-based techniques. The setup was designed to be extremely challenging, even for highly experienced practitioners. Sarah's opponents for this demonstration were both advanced students with competitive backgrounds who had been specifically chosen for their skill and size advantages. They had been instructed to provide genuine resistance while maintaining safety protocols. This was as close to real combat conditions as could be safely achieved in a demonstration environment. The multiple opponent scenario began with Sarah in a disadvantaged position, surrounded by her two opponents and required to create escape opportunities through technique rather than strength alone. This setup emphasized the practical applications of her training while showcasing the problem-solving aspects of martial arts that went beyond simple physical capability. Sarah's performance during this final routine exceeded the expectations of even the most optimistic observers. She moved between her opponents with fluid efficiency, using her enhanced grip strength to control their positioning while avoiding prolonged engagements that would allow them to coordinate their attacks. Her technique selection was perfect for the situation, emphasizing speed and effectiveness over visual appeal. The climax of the demonstration came when Sarah simultaneously controlled both opponents using techniques that required exceptional grip strength and perfect timing. For several seconds, she maintained dominant positioning against two larger, more experienced martial artists. Through pure technical superiority combined with her uniquely developed physical capabilities, the audience erupted in applause that continued for several minutes as Sarah bowed and acknowledged their appreciation. The response was clearly genuine, coming from practitioners who understood exactly how difficult the techniques they had just witnessed actually were. Several master-level instructors stood to show their respect, a gesture that carried special significance within martial arts culture. As Sarah left the demonstration area, she was immediately surrounded by students and instructors, wanting to learn more about her training methods and background. The questions came rapidly from multiple directions, covering everything from specific exercise routines to philosophical approaches to overcoming limitations. Sarah handled the attention gracefully, while being careful not to reveal proprietary information that Master Chen might prefer to keep within their academy. Derek approached her during a brief break in the questioning, his expression showing a mixture of amazement and sheepish recognition. He offered congratulations that seemed genuinely appreciative rather than grudging, acknowledging that he had seriously underestimated her potential during their original training partnership. The interaction was brief but meaningful, representing closure for the experiences that had initiated Sarah's transformation. Master Chen found Sarah near the end of the event and expressed his satisfaction with her performance and its reception by the martial arts community. He mentioned that several academy owners had inquired about bringing Sarah to their schools for seminars and workshops. These opportunities would represent the next phase of her development, transitioning from student to teacher and from personal achievement to community contribution. As the event concluded and the crowd began to disperse, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her from humiliated beginner to respected demonstrator. The transformation had required months of focused effort, but the results had exceeded even her most optimistic projections. More importantly, she had learned valuable lessons about the relationship between limitation and opportunity that would serve her well in future challenges. The drive home was quiet and contemplative, allowing Sarah to process the events of the day and plan for the opportunities that were sure to follow. Her performance had established her reputation within the martial arts community and opened doors that she was only beginning to understand. The mocking laughter that had driven her to train so intensively now seemed like the catalyst for achievements she could never have imagined during her first difficult night at the academy. The weeks following Sarah's demonstration brought a flood of opportunities that she had never anticipated. Academy owners from neighboring cities contacted Master Chen requesting workshops and seminars featuring her unique training methods. Martial arts magazines wanted to interview her about overcoming physical limitations. Equipment manufacturers offered sponsorship deals for her to endorse their grip training products. But the most significant opportunity came from an unexpected source. Dr. Patricia Williams, a sports medicine specialist who had attended the demonstration, approached Sarah about participating in a research study on grip strength development and its applications in martial arts. The study would document her training methods scientifically and potentially validate her approach for broader athletic applications. Sarah accepted the research opportunity, understanding that scientific validation would add credibility to her methods while contributing to knowledge that could help other athletes facing similar challenges. The study would require detailed documentation of her training routines, regular testing of her capabilities, and collaboration with exercise physiologists who specialized in strength development. The research process revealed aspects of Sarah's transformation that even she had not fully understood. The testing showed that her grip strength had increased by over 300% from her baseline measurements, placing her in the top percentile for athletes in her weight class. But more interesting were the neurological adaptations that had improved her hand-eye coordination, reaction time, and fine motor control. Dr. Williams explained that Sarah's training had created what researchers called cross-training effects, where improvements in one area enhanced performance in related skills. Her grip strength development had improved her overall athletic ability in ways that extended far beyond simple crushing power. These findings suggested that her approach could benefit athletes in many different sports and activities. The research also documented the psychological aspects of Sarah's transformation. Her self-confidence scores had increased dramatically, her stress management had improved, and her overall life satisfaction had risen significantly. The data confirmed what Sarah had experienced personally, that overcoming a significant physical limitation had created positive changes that affected every aspect of her life. As the research progressed, Sarah began teaching specialized workshops at her home academy and visiting schools throughout the region. These sessions attracted not just martial artists but also athletes from other sports who were interested in grip strength applications for their specific disciplines. Rock climbers, powerlifters, and even musicians attended her workshops to learn techniques that could improve their performance. Teaching others forced Sarah to articulate the principles behind her training methods and develop systematic approaches that could be adapted for different goals and populations. She discovered that she had an intuitive understanding of how to modify exercises for individual limitations and needs, a skill that made her workshops increasingly popular and effective. The success of her teaching led to an offer that would change Sarah's life trajectory completely. A prestigious sports performance center in a major metropolitan area offered her a position as a specialized trainer, focusing on grip strength development for elite athletes. The opportunity would require relocating and leaving her job at the coffee shop, but it represented the chance to make her passion into a full-time career. After considerable deliberation, Sarah accepted the position and began preparing for the transition. Master Chen was supportive of her decision while expressing sadness about losing such a dedicated student and promising teacher. He arranged a farewell demonstration where Sarah could showcase her latest techniques and say goodbye to the community that had supported her transformation. The farewell event at the academy drew an even larger crowd than her original demonstration. Students and instructors from dozens of schools attended to witness what had become known as Sarah's graduation performance. The routines she presented incorporated advanced techniques that built upon her original grip strength foundation while demonstrating continued growth and refinement. During this final demonstration, Sarah faced her most challenging opponents yet, two professional martial arts instructors who held advanced black belt rankings and competitive fighting experience. The scenario was designed to test the absolute limits of her capabilities against the highest level of opposition she had ever encountered. The exchange was intense and fast-paced, requiring Sarah to utilize every aspect of her training while adapting to strategies and techniques she had never faced before. Her opponents were skilled enough to exploit any weaknesses in her approach while providing the type of dynamic, unpredictable resistance that revealed true martial arts capability rather than rehearsed demonstration skill. Sarah's performance during this ultimate test confirmed that her transformation had been complete and legitimate. She controlled the engagement from start to finish, using her enhanced grip strength as a foundation for techniques that showcased years of dedicated training and natural athletic intelligence. The professional instructors she faced acknowledged afterward that her skill level rivaled their own, despite her relatively short formal training. The audience response to this final performance was overwhelming, with standing ovations that continued for several minutes. Master Chen presented Sarah with a special recognition that honored not just her technical achievements but also her contribution to the Academy's reputation and her inspiration to other students facing their own challenges and limitations. As Sarah prepared to leave for her new position, she reflected on the complete transformation of her circumstances and identity. The terrified beginner who had fled from embarrassment had become a respected instructor whose methods were being studied by researchers and implemented by athletes across multiple disciplines. The journey had required tremendous dedication, but the rewards had exceeded her wildest expectations. Her last day at the coffee shop was bittersweet, marked by well-wishes from co-workers who had watched her transformation from the beginning. They had seen her practicing exercises during breaks, witnessed her growing confidence, and supported her through the challenging periods of intense training. Their encouragement had provided emotional support that complemented the technical guidance she received at the Academy. The move to the new city represented more than just a career change. It was the beginning of Sarah's evolution from student to expert, from someone who had overcome personal limitations to someone who could help others achieve their own breakthroughs. Her story had become proof that dedicated effort could transform apparent weaknesses into distinctive strengths. Sarah's new position at the Sports Performance Center would give her access to elite athletes from multiple disciplines, advanced training equipment, and research facilities that could help her continue developing innovative approaches to grip strength training. She would be working with Olympic hopefuls, professional athletes, and serious recreational competitors who demanded the highest level of expertise and results. The night before her departure, Sarah visited the Academy one final time to train alone and reflect on her journey. The empty dojo felt different now, charged with memories of struggle, breakthrough, and ultimate triumph. She performed her original escape techniques slowly and deliberately, remembering the frustration and determination that had driven her to transform herself so completely. As she locked the Academy doors and walked to her car, Sarah carried with her not just the physical capabilities she had developed, but also the knowledge that limitations were often just starting points, waiting for the right combination of vision, planning, and persistent effort. Her story would inspire others facing their own challenges, proving that remarkable transformation was possible for anyone willing to commit to the necessary work. 2 years after her move to the Metropolitan Sports Performance Center, Sarah had established herself as one of the most sought-after specialized trainers in the country. Her client list included Olympic medalists, professional fighters, and elite athletes from sports ranging from rock climbing to gymnastics. The scientific validation of her methods had led to widespread adoption of her techniques across multiple athletic disciplines. The research study with Dr. Williams had been published in several prestigious sports medicine journals, establishing Sarah's approach as a legitimate and effective training methodology. The documentation of her transformation had become required reading in exercise physiology programs, and her story was cited in academic papers about overcoming athletic limitations through targeted training interventions. But Sarah's greatest satisfaction came from working with athletes who faced similar challenges to those she had originally encountered. Her specialty had become helping performers who were told they lacked the physical attributes necessary for success in their chosen disciplines. These athletes found in Sarah not just a trainer but a living example of what was possible through intelligent preparation and unwavering commitment. One of her most memorable clients was Marcus Chen, a young martial artist who had been born with a condition that limited the development of his hand and forearm muscles. Traditional training approaches had failed to provide the grip strength he needed for advanced techniques, and several instructors had suggested he consider alternative activities that didn't require such capabilities. Working with Marcus reminded Sarah of her own early struggles and renewed her appreciation for the journey she had completed. She modified her training approaches to accommodate his specific limitations while maintaining the core principles that had proven effective for grip strength development. The process required creativity and patience, But the results validated her belief that almost any limitation could be addressed through properly designed intervention. Marcus's improvement followed a similar trajectory to Sarah's own transformation, though his starting point was more challenging and his progress initially slower. However, his dedication matched Sarah's original commitment, and his results eventually exceeded what medical specialists had considered possible for someone with his condition. His success became another proof point for Sarah's methods and philosophy. The success stories accumulated over time, creating a reputation that attracted athletes from around the world who traveled specifically to work with Sarah. Her waiting list grew to several months, and she found herself in the position of being able to select clients whose goals aligned with her expertise and whose commitment matched the intensity required for significant transformation. Sarah's personal training had also evolved, far beyond her original grip strength focus. She had become a complete martial artist with expertise, spanning multiple disciplines and techniques that incorporated her unique physical capabilities. Her competitive record in regional tournaments was impressive, though she rarely competed, due to the demands of her training and research responsibilities. The recognition of her achievements had brought opportunities for media appearances and speaking engagements that extended her influence. Beyond the athletic community, Sarah spoke at conferences about overcoming limitations, wrote articles for fitness publications, and consulted with equipment manufacturers on product development. Her story had become inspirational content that reached people facing challenges far removed from martial arts or athletic performance. However, Sarah's most significant contribution came through the training program she developed for instructors who wanted to implement her methods in their own facilities. This certification process ensured that her techniques would be taught properly, while extending their availability to athletes who couldn't travel to work with her directly. The program had trained hundreds of instructors across multiple countries, creating a network of practitioners who shared her philosophy and methods. The instructor certification program also served as Sarah's way of giving back to the martial arts community that had supported her development. Many of the certified instructors were teaching at academies similar to the one where Sarah had first struggled, helping new students avoid the discouragement and humiliation that had nearly ended her martial arts journey before it truly began. Master Chen had become one of the first certified instructors in Sarah's program, incorporating her methods into the curriculum at their original academy. He frequently sent students to work with Sarah when their challenges exceeded what could be addressed through standard training approaches. The partnership had strengthened both their programs while maintaining the mentoring relationship that had been crucial to Sarah's development. The academy where Sarah had first struggled had installed a display case showcasing her achievements and chronicling her transformation from struggling beginner to internationally recognized expert. The exhibit served as inspiration for current students while demonstrating the academy's commitment to supporting athletes who were willing to work for improvement regardless of their starting capabilities. Derek, Sarah's original training partner, whose dismissive attitude had inadvertently catalyzed her transformation, had become one of her most enthusiastic supporters. He frequently used her story when teaching his own students about the importance of treating training partners with respect and recognizing that apparent limitations might mask tremendous potential waiting for the right catalyst to emerge. Sarah's training methods had evolved into a comprehensive system that addressed not just grip strength but the psychological and technical aspects of overcoming athletic limitations. Her approach emphasized intelligent analysis of challenges, systematic development of solutions, and persistent application of proven methods. The system could be adapted for virtually any performance limitation that could be addressed through physical training. The transformation that had begun with mocking laughter in a martial arts academy had ultimately created a career that combined Sarah's passions for athletic achievement, scientific inquiry, and helping others overcome their own challenges. Her story had become proof that limitations were often just opportunities in disguise, waiting for someone with sufficient vision and determination to unlock their transformative potential. As Sarah reflected on her journey from her office at the Sports Performance Center, she could see training sessions in progress through the large windows that overlooked the main facility. Athletes of all levels were working to improve their capabilities, some struggling with challenges similar to those she had once faced. The sight reinforced her understanding that transformation was always possible for those willing to commit to the necessary work. The 8 seconds that had defined her return to the academy seemed like a lifetime ago, but they remained the foundation of everything she had achieved. Those moments had validated months of preparation, while opening doors to opportunities she could never have imagined. They had transformed her from someone who had been mocked for her limitations into someone who was respected for her ability to transcend them. Sarah's story continued to inspire athletes facing their own moments of doubt and challenge. Her message was simple but powerful. Apparent weaknesses could become distinctive strengths for those willing to approach their development with intelligence, dedication, and unwavering commitment to improvement. The mocking laughter that had driven her transformation had ultimately become the catalyst for achievements that exceeded her most ambitious dreams.